Welcome. We will now start the press conference for Operation Twin Shield. I'll turn it over to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Etlow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Joseph Etlow. I'm the Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I'm incredibly pleased to be here today to announce the successful conclusion to Operation Twin Shield, an enforcement effort of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services with absolutely invaluable support
Also yesterday,
from U.S.
while the Democrats were whining about health care for
the FBI
illegal aliens,
fraud.
President Trump signed a powerful executive order to supercharge American AI innovation in unlawful cures for pediatric cancer patients in the United States. While President
I also want to thank Jeff Brecht and Mike Kennard from FDNS, as well as Michael Borgen from USCIS. And also want to thank Bill McGinn, our FDNS chief in Kansas City, who was on the ground during the entirety of the operation. Since September 19th, officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies.
You know, when they talk about 400 billion, that's going to be a drop in the bucket. Watch, mark my words. It's going to be bigger.
Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns.
Yeah, it should, because they miss the other 50%. They need to be double checked because they get good. And then they start pulling a fast one on you. And it is a fast one.
Concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens, and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases. Some of the other troubling cases that our officers found. In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests. He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin.
Is that Ilha Omar's brother or husband brother?
In another, an individual admitted to obtaining a fake death certificate in Kenya for just $100 to prove he was no longer married. In reality, his wife is alive, living here in Minneapolis, and is the mother of 5 of his children. And incidentally, he has another wife living in Sweden with whom he has an additional 3 children. In another case, an alien entered the United States without inspection in 2023, was released by Border Patrol. The alien married a U.S. citizen while in removal proceedings and was interviewed at the Minneapolis-St. Paul USCIS field office just last week, where both he and his American spouse stated under oath that their marriage was legitimate. The USCIS officers conducting the interview were suspicious. The site visits were authorized the same day. The American spouse ultimately that afternoon admitted the marriage was fraudulent and entered into solely for immigration purposes and withdrew her petition for that alien. This type of same-day action for interview, from interview to site visit, has really never happened before. And I am incredibly impressed and thankful to the diligent work of the agents who made that happen for the first time, but not for the last time. And finally, I wanted to note, in one case, an alien engaged in marriage fraud by taking advantage of an elderly U.S. citizen spouse, including threats and severe neglect. The American spouse was able to divorce the alien with the help of her family and caregivers, but the family still lives in fear of retaliation from the alien over the failed marriage fraud scam. These are not victimless crimes. Every case of fraud we uncover damages our national security, undermines the integrity of our immigration system, and as I just gave you an example, has real consequences. I want the American people to know that we
real financial consequences.
are declaring war on immigration fraud. We will continue to pursue those who seek to abuse our immigration system using every tool at our disposal. This operation, Twin Shield, is just the first phase of what we are looking at. The critical information gathered, the fraud patterns uncovered, will help us to combat fraud at the next level. We now begin the process of analyzing, cross-checking, reviewing cases using these results. These investigations will help us determine the next steps in many cases. We will be looking at grants of immigration benefits already given. We will be looking at other patterns, and we will be re-examining benefits to determine whether rescission, revocation is appropriate in any of these cases. Additionally, I would say right now that if you seek to commit immigration fraud in this country, you will find yourself meeting with our officers at USCIS. You will meet officers within our federal partners at ICE, CBP,
And over the span of the last week and a half, investigators say they found at least 275 cases of suspected immigration fraud. One case involved a man who admitted to using a fake death certificate from Kenya to convince the feds that his wife was dead, even though they say she's alive and lives here in Minneapolis. In another case, a suspected terrorist's son overstayed his visa, they said, and committed marriage fraud. They arrested 4 undocumented immigrants.
I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to tell everybody a short story. You see my little hat here? I'm just pulling that out so I don't have to pull out my ID. So I've been living in Alaska for quite a while. And when I flew in from Dutch Harbor, where the deadliest catch is, which is pretty cool, and I flew in, and I met this guy. His name is Abdul. And let me rewrite it. He lived in the same building I live in. He was on the 3rd floor, 4th floor. I was on the 3rd floor. And I got to know the guy a little bit, got to know him a little bit. And then one night he came over and he'd been drinking. And he'd been drinking. He's shit-faced. And he comes in and he starts talking about money and all this money. And I says, what are you talking about, money? He goes, oh, he says, my family has millions and millions of dollars. We got medical services in Minnesota. And I said, oh, you do? I like really, you do? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I own this complex and the one down the street. I'm like, holy shit, he did. And so here we are 8 years later, and it's all clicking into my head. He's from the Twin Cities. He's in charge of hospice care, which after he explained to me, John, I lived in a doghouse for a year and a half with a M16 outside my village. I'm doing a little slang accent, but he's like, oh, I don't know. But at any rate, so he explains to me how he has a much lower value on human life as we do, as Americans do. And I confronted him. I said, oh, come on now, what are you saying? I know you're not a bad guy. He goes, no, I'm not a bad guy, but I shoot hundreds of people. I killed a lot of people in a bad way. And this dude's spilling it out. He's not lying. And I'm like, holy cow, now I realize how I know he has lots of money. And turns out, so one day there's banging on the doors, and I go out the front door, and here's the FBI and the everybody, the cops. And he was bringing in kilos and kilos and kilos up to Alaska. Anyways, the long and the short is, he's a Somalian from Minnesota, and all his family's there. And he opened up all these restaurants, a chain of restaurants for 3rd world country I forget the name of it. It's like rice spoon and pedal or something, and they cook food out on a grill, and they have exotic dishes like fish heads and stuff like that. At any rate, now that this is happening in Minnesota, it's all coming clear to me. He wasn't lying. He wasn't lying at all. He was telling me exactly what it is. I've met his family. There was a whole plane load flew into Anchorage, literally. A whole plane with 78 people on it. They're all his family. They just rented the plane for the weekend. Crazy. Anyways, let's see what else we got here going on.
And issued notices to appear or refer to immigrants.
So this is here we are 8 years later, and I'm hearing the rest of the story.
To ICE in 42 other cases.
These are not victimless crimes. Every case of fraud we uncover damages our national security, undermines the integrity of our immigration system, and as I just gave you an example, has real consequences. At the end of the day, immigration fraud will not and will no longer be tolerated in this country.
It's crazy.
And there's no word yet on any criminal charges stemming from this investigation, though investigators said today that they are always working with federal prosecutors when they...
What's this guy?
Governor, your agenda is clear. Free health care, free college and driver's licenses for illegals while handcuffing law enforcement when they're trying to protect our citizens and their communities. If you think that's not a sanctuary state, you shouldn't be governor.
Congressman, what I would say on this is that Minnesota follows all law. I would say
it's a very easy question. And again, if you claim you're not a sanctuary state, you just claim that you support policies. You're not a sanctuary state, but you support policies that prevent ICE from doing their job.
Congressman,
isn't that right?
That is incorrect, Congressman. We follow the same laws when you were in the Minnesota House. The law has not changed.
Governor Walz, your sanctuary state agenda has been defined by your utter failure. You have failed to enforce the rule of law. You have failed to uphold our national sovereignty. And most importantly, you have failed the people of Minnesota.
Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention.
That's exactly where you live today.
Talking about cities and where it's at, the number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves.
Oh my God. Go figure that one.
Buckle up. The Democrats are staging another coup.
I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shut down, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly.
AOC's announcing, I'm captain now, and told Schumer to walk the plank. Chuck, did you hear that?
The Schumer shutdown. What do you say about that name? Senator Schumer, can you hear me? Senator Schumer, can you hear me? I don't think Senator Schumer can hear me right now. Maybe the government shutdown included audio on Capitol Hill.
Do we even need to hear from Chuck?
Shut the audio down too, huh?
Because AOC's the shot caller. She told Chuck to shut it down, and he did. He shut it down so he can keep his job.
Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American People's Government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far-left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge.
The White House
posted
this picture of Schumer as a hot dog. Don't worry, it's kosher. We also hope Chuck grills dogs better.
Grill dog at Juggy.
Speaking of barbecue, what's up with his hands? Did he burn them on the grill? Democrats don't have a political party, but at least they have a Halloween party. Chuck's dressed as a hot dog, AOC's a pirate, and Hakeem's wearing a sombrero. Nancy didn't get the invite, and now she's rhymes with hissed.
There was a
She's scary looking.
The AOC is directing this, and she said that senators are welcome to go to her office directly. Is she driving that?
Why are you saying such a ridiculous thing?
I'm just wondering what AOC said. She said go to her office directly. Do you think there's any credibility to that?
She's not directing this. She's wonderful. She's a real
spirited. She's real spirit, real gun ho.
She's got
it in for her. Yes, she does.
Directing this. She is not. Hakeem Jeffries is.
Hakeem's in charge.
Oh.
You mean the guy taking shutdown selfies and holding sombrero press conferences?
It was a disgusting video. It was a racist video. It was unbecoming of anyone purporting to be the president of the United States of America.
Double thumbs up, Trump.
But y'all, I ain't scared.
No one said you were scared, Hips. It's just a sombrero. Democrats called Trump a Nazi and let him get shot in the head. He ain't scared. They didn't demand answers after Butler, but now they want Mike Johnson to investigate Sombrero Gate.
Sombrero case.
With our leader in a sombrero, nodding with a stash, and Schumer saying things, of course, that he never said. The speaker said that was not his style. I said, did you call it out? You should call it out for the racist, bigoted thing that it was. And he questioned whether or not it was racist.
What's racist about a sombrero? They're acting like they put a Black Panther cap on them. They've been putting white hoods on Trump's head for 10 years. But a sombrero's racist? It's actually kind of racist to think a sombrero's racist.
Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that.
Wow.
And I honestly don't even know what
Are those real
like,
books of Trump? Those real books of Trump? I've got to look that up.
Is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? And I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that.
So what we have here is a good old Mexican standoff. Trump will stop putting up pictures of hips in a sombrero if Democrats stop demanding health care for illegals to keep the government running. It's not like Trump didn't let Hakeem pick his hat. Hips could have walked out of the Oval with a big, beautiful Trump 2028 hat. Trump said, come on, Jeff.
He's trolling him. Look at him, point at him. Look at him, point at him. And you know why Hakeem is nervous? You know, back in the first term, the Democrats literally screwed Trump, robbed him out of 2 years, maybe 2.5. Maybe 2.5. Just totally derailed the first half of his presidency. He could have done great. He could have done much better. He did do great. I'm surprised he survived. Then he went on for another 3.5 years getting drugged through the courts. Oh my God, Biden is disgusting. Everybody who worked in that house is disgusting. And I'm talking about his whole cabinet. I'm talking about the whole Congress. Everybody knew about it. So did Schumer. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem, they were there. They knew about it. They're just disgusting pigs. And I can't believe they're allowed. That's how you know how free you are in this country. You're allowed to represent people when you hate this country.
Biden wore one, but Hakeem said, red's not my color.
Well, actually, he did not try to hand Leader Schumer and I the Trump 2028 hat. They just randomly appeared in the middle of the meeting on the desk. It was the strangest thing ever. And I just looked at the hat, looked at J.D. Vance, who was seated to my left, and said, don't you got a problem with this? And he said no comment. And that was the end of it.
So if Hakeem walked out with a deal and a hat, we wouldn't be here. Now the government is officially shut down, and no one knows who's in charge of the Democrat Party. So they're running around the Hill banging on doors.
Open the door, Mr. Speaker. Open the doors of Congress, Mr. Speaker.
Transgender congressmen are storming the Capitol trying to find Johnson.
We're barreling towards a shutdown. All my Democratic colleagues are here. I'm going to go search for my Republican colleagues. Republicans, y'all know there's a government shutdown. Republicans, anyone here? Is Mike Johnson in here?
Remember Shree, the 70-year-old Indian congressman that tried to impeach Trump?
From Michigan.
Well, he just flew the coop and said the quiet part out loud.
Returning back to Detroit this morning after the Republicans failed to show up in the U.S. House. We got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
Shree's going to be in trouble with Hips. Democrats aren't supposed to admit they're the ones shutting down the government. We all know they're shutting it down to give illegal aliens free health care, but they're not supposed to admit that either. But they did.
The amount of money that actually is going towards people who are undocumented is such a small portion of the Medicaid cuts or the Affordable Care Act, if at all.
They went from illegal aliens don't get free health care to, yeah, we're giving them free health care, but it just doesn't cost that much. CNN caught them red-handed. Watch.
They talk about the provisions, and it's right here, subtitle E, and this has to do with the repeal of health care. What you support does bring back funding for emergency Medicaid to hospitals, some of which does pay for undocumented immigrants. Why even include that in a bill knowing that they're going to seize right upon that?
Hakeem didn't answer the question, but Maxine did. No relation. She said Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. Trump and JD, they aren't going to let that slide.
There's a lot of emergency health care at hospitals that are provided to illegal aliens. That was funded by the federal government. The Biden administration gave mass parole to millions upon millions of illegal aliens, and then they simultaneously made those parolees eligible for health care benefits funded by taxpayers.
Biden was waving an amnesty wand and giving millions of illegals free health care. Illegals were going to the hospital to have babies, free. In California, they were able to get sex changes, free. Illegals use the hospital when they have the sniffles, all free. We got fleeced. So Trump closed the bank. A Times poll says 65% of the country thinks Democrats are delusional for shutting down the government for this. Schumer calls it fake news.
The question in that poll is biased.
Oh,
biased. In the New York Times, but it's biased. If you turn the That's true. I don't always believe the New York Times.
Democrats are getting annihilated in the PR battle. The media won't lie for them, and they don't even know how to meme.
We're also dealing with the social media, which we didn't do enough of, frankly, in the past. And that was a mistake, and we're trying to rectify it.
Chuck has to save face with the base and show he can fight, or else he's going to get cooed. The Democrats are going through the same growing pains that the Republicans went through 15 years ago with the Tea Party and then with the Freedom Caucus. Republicans got rid of Eric Cantor, Boehner, Kevin McCarthy. But the Democrat Party never let the beefs play out. They shut down Bernie. Nancy put AOC in timeout. And they stole the nomination from Biden.
Yeah.
The Democrat establishment's on a collision course with its base. Now, these kinds of fights should be done in the primary, when voters decide the winners and losers. But when you do it in a shutdown, both factions lose. Trump's not caving.
He's just going to shut them all down. He's going to fire half their asses.
The government will reopen. Sombreros or no sombreros, there will be no fiesta. But Schumer will always look like a wiener.